What I'm trying to do here, so I'm trying to kind of give you a basic guide to get out into the wild and to be able to start to experiment for yourself. So the major thing to start with, of course, is safety. Okay, yeah, there are a few plants out there and they will kill you. They're also quite good medicines, some of them as well, but so the main thing is, if you know your plant families, then you can start to learn quite quickly. If you see a plant and you know immediately it's in, say, the carrot family, then you're going to know where to find it in the flower guide. And also, if you know something about each family, you know that, for instance, with the carrot family, there might be poisonous plants, so you have to be careful. Some families, like the mint family, you're generally going to be okay. In fact, I don't know a poisonous plant in the mint family. I'll try and bring in a bit of food as well, so there are certain families which are good for food. And I'm going to try and bring in taste as well. So the idea is that rather than just going to books and going, oh yeah, that herb's good for that, if we can actually learn to taste things and to look at the plant and to use our senses to get to know the plant, then we can maybe begin to experiment ourselves. But of course it's quite good if you're going to taste plants to know if they're going to be poisonous or not. So the 5 tastes. This is a kind of traditional Chinese thing. So the pungent taste, we all know that with ginger, chili, but we'd also put pungency with things like rosemary, thyme, so the kind of aromatic things. So herbs with an aromatic taste, with a hot taste. I also put in herbs that are kind of prickly, so the prickly taste that will kind of diffuse through the system. So ginger would be counted there, and there's also an American herb named Pukeweed, which is quite an interesting one. You can literally feel it crawling down your throat. It's quite a strange one. And then there's the sour taste, which generally cools. So a lot of the sour herbs are kind of antihistamine. They bring down kind of inflammation and kind of hyperimmunity. Astringency is an interesting one. So a lot of the herbs that we find in the wild, they have that kind of drying taste, if you know. So that's usually caused by things called tannins. And so the word tannins, I think it comes because they were used to tan. So when you're tanning leather, you're kind of creating the integrity of the surface. So they do the same with the digestive system and the lungs. They help to bind the tissues a little bit. So that's drying. And then sweet taste is generally nutritive. It can be cooling as well. And so I put that for the kind of moistening herbs, which are nutritive, and they help to kind of restore us. A lot of the adaptogenic herbs that we use to kind of restore ourselves from stress are sweet. So things like ginseng, Chinese foxglove, have that nice sweet taste. And then of course there's the bitter taste, which is cleansing. So with the bitter taste, it has a reflex upon the gut, which has the effect of actually releasing bile. So when you're releasing bile, that's the major route of elimination out of the liver. So it's quite cleansing on the liver. And then it has a general moving effect on the whole of the digestive system as well. So with the bitter herbs, we talk about kind of blood cleansers, so they're quite often good for skin conditions. And then there is a kind of sixth taste, which is the acrid taste, which is kind of a bitter taste, which is really intense. And those are the very relaxing herbs. So has anyone had a vervain tea, for example? Yeah. Pretty intense flavour, but it does the job. So very good for kind of tension. And there are quite a lot of herbs with that similar kind of thing. So this little schema here comes from somebody called Matthew Wood, and he's kind of developed his own sort of Western herbal kind of energetics, and so he talks about the six tissue states. So heat, which is kind of inflammation, and so generally the sour herbs are going to help with that. Dock would be a good example of a sour herb for heat. Cold is going to be helped with by, with the kind of pungent herbs. So when we're looking at sepsis, low function of the system in general, coldness, blue colours in the skin. Then we're going to go to the aromatic herbs. Dryness is when there's a kind of weight loss, weakness, and generally a low function of any particular part. So we're going to help that with the sweet herbs. But also with the restorative herbs, we might talk about meaty or salty herbs as well. So nettle is a very good example there. It's very full of iron, vitamin C, and so forth. So it's a really good herb to help to rebuild. And then a lot of the sweet herbs are very good for the blood. And then damp is when there's free flow between the tissues. Sweating, diarrhea, fluid loss, and of course we deal with that with the astringent herbs. Stagnation is toxicity, so skin conditions can quite often show it. Quite often on the tongue there'll be a kind of brownish coating, and that will be related to the kind of build-up of wastes, and they're not kind of flowing out. And then of course ME and stuff like that are connected to it. So we quite often with that, you might think that we need a restorative herb, but in fact we need to cleanse the system first. And then wind is for the relaxing herbs. So that's kind of a basic scheme, and I kind of present that so that when you get outside you can actually experiment and go, okay, so maybe, you know. Of course you also want to look at the form of the plant, the colours of the plant, the smell of the plants as well. Although all of that is another talk entirely, I think. So I'm going to go through a few plant families. So there's about 5 or 6 major plant families which you'll meet, and that will deal with a lot of the herbs that you will find. Okay, so the rose family is a nice one to start with. The subtitle here, moderation in the midst of plenty, That kind of sums up something I've been trying to work out about the rose family for quite a long time. So quite often when you go to a kind of wild herb book, they quite often just say, oh, it's astringent. And they say that about a lot of the rose herbs, and I've always felt there's a little bit more going on. And of course the rose family is our major family for fruits. So apples, plums, pears, cherries, almonds, peaches, so on and so forth. So it's a majorly fruiting family, and it seems that the larger the plants get, the more they'll make fruit. So we have kind of strawberries do make fruit, but most of the herby plants in the rose family, they tend not to bear fruit. And then the trees, of course, tend to bear fruits. So yeah, there is this kind of astringency going on. So a lot of the herbs that we'll find in the wild. So Tormentil, very common herb up on the moors. It's a bit strange for the rose family. It's got a 4-petaled flower, and the rose family, it generally comes in 5s. So if you look in the core of an apple, you'll see that it's got 5 parts to it. Yeah, so Tormentil is a very good astringent, actually. Very good for diarrhea. Silverweed, again, it's astringent, and the thing with astringency is they say that it's something you don't want to use too much if you're someone who's prone to lose weight. So what it does is it tends to have the effect of lowering the kind of absorption of food. But silverweed, interestingly, is an ancient starvation food. So the redness in the root, the root was used as a food, and you would have thought with the astringency it wouldn't really work, but it does seem to. And again, I like to think that there's this redness that comes in, which is almost like a sign for sort of blood, and so you get this very red root. Cinquefoil is similar. Meadowsweet is a very interesting plant which grows in sort of marshes and along ponds. That's actually slightly different. It's quite cooling. It's quite good for pain. Very good for heartburn. And then you get your sweet herbs. So the raspberries and the fruits and stuff. Yeah, so I'm putting in the raspberry. Again, what I'm trying to bring out is there's this kind of astringency, but it holds on to a nutritive side of the plant. So raspberries quite often used for reproductive issues. So also is lady's mantle. So lady's mantle, if you know it, is the one with the leaves, sort of hairy leaves, and it holds on to the dewdrops. And it's almost like the dewdrop is a sign for the way that it holds the liquid into place. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get into with the rose family, the way it's kind of got this nutritive fruiting side, but this ability to kind of form it. And that really is the essence of the rose. It's this kind of beauty, but beauty held together by form. Yeah, so probably can't get into that too deeply when I've got 6 more plant families to get through. And then of course there's the sour taste. So cooling herbs, cherry is very good for kind of hyperimmune, and it's quite often it's used when you've got that kind of dry cough, which is a kind of irritation of the mucosal parts of the lungs. So what the cherry's doing is it's kind of soothing. So it will stop that kind of cough that you do when you're, but there isn't actually anything there. They actually say with cherry that you should be careful with it because you shouldn't use it when there might be phlegm to actually bring out. But in my experience, it doesn't actually stop the coughing reflex. It just soothes the kind of irritation that makes you start to cough when there isn't something there. There was a griminy as well, which is an interesting plant. Again, in the herb books, they just say astringent, but it's actually a bit more than that. It's actually a relaxant as well. So it's actually quite good for tension. And that feeds in quite well with the bark flower picture, which is people that hide behind a happy face. So they might have things going wrong, but they make a happy front. So here's just a few pictures of some of the things you might find. I actually haven't spoken about hawthorn at all, which of course is very good for the heart, very good for high blood pressure. Hasn't come out very clearly, but you can see the lady's mantle with the dewdrops. Next there to the right is the meadow sweet, and then there's the four-petaled tormentil, and then there's the silverweed. And it's quite nice just to see with the cherries, that particular type of bark is something that you can always spot. It's meant to be Prunus serratina, which is used for coughs, but I have actually found any cherry bark will do. And this is another woodland herb. Again, it's kind of an astringent, geum, it's called. So that's kind of an introduction to the rose family. There are probably quite a few herbs which I haven't mentioned, but a lot of those herbs you will see a lot. So the mint family. So the kind of herbs we know well of the mint family are the aromatic herbs. So the Mediterranean ones. So thyme, hyssop, rosemary, mint, lemon balm too. Yeah, so they are basically, they're warming, they're really good for the digestive system, stimulating. Rosemary is very good if you're trying to get off the caffeine. It's a great tea to have in sort of at the start of the day. It's also meant to be a bit of an adrenal kind of a support, but at the same time you shouldn't use it late at night because it can stop sleep. And then of course you get the kind of acrid herbs. So motherwort is something that you see in the wildflower books. I've never actually seen it growing wild, but it's got this intensely kind of a bitter flavour, but very relaxing, and it's also used for childbirth. And actually it can be used during the first few weeks kind of afterwards. It kind of helps with milk flow and it helps everyone keep calm. Gypsywort, you sometimes see it growing on the canal sides. Similar to motherwort in a way. Like motherwort and lemon balm, it's used for hypothyroid. So generally relaxing herbs there. Skullcap, usually we use the Mad Dog skullcap, which is from the States, but we have got a native skullcap which is meant to work in the same way. Bugle is quite a nice herb that you'll see growing wild a bit. Yeah, so nice relaxing herbs. There's quite a lot of nervine herbs there, good for anxiety and stuff like that. Lemon balm as well, actually, is a very kind of nice cooling herb as well. And then as you begin to meet members of the mint family in this country, you'll find you meet these astringent herbs. So things like the woundworts. They've got a very strange kind of a smell to them, but they are meant to be amazing for wounds. Self-heal as well is a wound herb. Dead nettle is a very good astringency for sort of mucous membrane health. And the archangels as well. Yeah, so no poisons, no trees, lots of herbs to cook with, lots of medicines, but not really any food as well. So it's all stuff that you might put into your food in small amounts, but you're not going to eat a lot of it. Next slide. Oh yeah, and there are some nice expectorants in there for the lungs. Black horehound you sometimes see growing around. Black horehound is the bottom herb in the middle. Ground ivy is the herb on the right there, which is very common. You find that in woodlands, and sort of it kind of sprawls along the ground, kind of under hedgerows. And there's the white dead nettle, and at the top there is white horehound. Extremely bitter actually, but so they work on the stomach a lot, but they seem to have a very good effect on the lungs. Interestingly, because of the vagus nerve, a lot of herbs that work on the stomach work on the lungs as well. There's kind of a connection there. And then just a few more examples here. Actually that is the woundwort. There is the native skullcap. There's hyssop, lovely blue flowers. Stachys on the top right, nice herb for people stomach complaints that are caused by anxiety. And there's a herbalist actually, he talks about the way that it seems to be people that have lost the integrity of their self through kind of trauma. And that seems to get in and sort of affect the guts. In the middle on the top is wood sage, which again is a nice astringent herb, and you'll see that growing around a lot. And actually, I can't tell what the herb on the top left is. I think it's archangel actually, isn't it? Yeah, but it's quite hard to see. So there in a nutshell is the mint family. So a few different things kind of going on there, but in terms of the ones that you're actually going to meet in the wild, it's going to be the kind of astringents and some of the relaxing herbs as well. So the daisy family, massive family, there are about 20,000 species in it. Quite hard to kind of pinpoint or to bring out any particular themes. There are a few themes. I've kind of tried to bring out some of the basic forms that you see. So there's the kind of thistly herbs. So milk thistle is a well-known herb, very good herb for the liver. Holy thistle is very much the same, but very intense in taste. And then, of course, we can use, there are a couple of natives, which is the carline thistle and the the cotton one as well. And then of course there's burdock as well. Very good blood cleansing herb. And then there's the daisy-like flowers, so chamomile, daisies of course, ragwort, oxeyes. And then the dandelion-like flowers. So there's quite a lot of foods in there actually. There's quite a lot of herbs there that you can pick for kind of wild leaves. Fairly bitter, not that nice. You probably want to be quite careful in the amount that you put in. But good for you as well, I think. So we got the cat's ears and the hawk's bits and the hawk's beards. There's actually a load of different herbs there, and it's quite hard to kind of tell them apart. And then we've got the Artemisias, so wormwood. My brain's gone blank. Mugwort. So mugwort you'll see growing around a lot. And then there's the Tanacetum, so tansy, feverfew. And then we've got a few foods, so lettuce, chicory, and salsify. Salsify is meant to have the ability to regulate blood sugar actually. And it's quite easily grown as a vegetable. You can eat the young shoots, and then the roots can be steamed too. So that's kind of the basic forms that you'll see. Of course, the thing with the daisy family is its old name is the composite family. So what you're getting with the daisy family is like that. We might think of that as one flower, but it's not actually one flower. It's loads of little flowers in one head. So every little bit inside there is actually one flower. Yeah. So that's why it's known as the composite family. It's a composite flower. So medicinal actions. So of course we've got lots of liver herbs. We've got milk thistle, dandelion, chicory. Artichoke is a very good herb. It's very good for the liver. By being good for the liver, it actually helps deal with blood cholesterol as well, and burdock as well. We've got some nice expectorant herbs for coughs. So we've got elecampane. Again, I think I've seen that growing in the wild once, but I wasn't sure if that was maybe an escape. It's a lovely plant actually. It grows about that tall. It's got families which are like, flowers which are like a sunflower. And when you dig the root, you get this lovely starchy root with this incredibly strong smell to it. So it's kind of mixing up. It's the starch is kind of a restorative action there with a bitter action, and then there's a kind of aromatic as well. So they can actually make an essential oil from it. Then there's Colts Foot, which is quite a strange plant because it flowers early on in the spring, and then its leaves come up after the flowers have died. There is a toxicity there actually with the next herb, which is also known as petasites. Both good cough herbs, but there is an alkaloid in there which is thought to be harmful on the liver, and there's lots of debate over how harmful it actually is, and some people don't like to use them at all. Personally, I think it's fine if you use them for small amounts of time and not a large dose. And we've got a few relaxant herbs, so chamomile, and then what wild lettuce is used for kids, and again we get that kind of acrid taste, that very intense kind of a bitter taste, and we find that it's extremely good for sleep, and was used for kids to keep them calm. And the aromatic herbs again, so the Artemisias have a certain amount of an aromatic side to them. Yarrow as well, chamomile, tansy. There's a special type of an aromatic there which is known as a sesquiterpene, which sounds very clever, but it basically means a molecule with 15 carbons or something. What they have the effect of doing is you get a kind of aromatic side with a bitter effect, and that's quite nice to use for people that maybe need the stimulation of the aromatics, and it will kind of combine a relaxing side to the cleansing side as well. And then we've got some nice externals. So everybody probably knows of arnica. Many people don't know that a daisy can be used in a lot of cases instead. So we're buying this very rare herb in from the Alps, and we've got the daisies growing all around the place, and we forget about them. So you can make an infused oil out of them, and it's very, very, very good for bruises. And then we've got a lot of edible herbs, so dandelion, sow thistle. A lot of the thistles can be eaten as well, if you can be bothered to take all the spikes off. I did try it once. It took an awful long time for not a lot of food in the end of it. I mean, it is worth being aware with wild herbs that if you compare the nutrient contents to the stuff we buy, it's far, far higher. So just to add a small amount of wild stuff to your food is probably going to bring in a lot of extra things. And then we've got low-level toxicity, so ragworts have got a bit of a bad press, actually. You can make an infused oil. Here am I saying it's poisonous. You can make an infused oil out of it for external use for back pain, actually. Groundsel as well, and Colts Foot, not so sure about. Anything else to say there? I think probably better move swiftly on. Oh yeah, what I was meant to going to say. So the starch which you get in the Ella campaign, which I think is the same one in the Salsify, is in dandelion as well, and it does turn up quite a lot. And so dandelion as well is meant to help with blood sugar. And of course, dandelion is very good as a diuretic herb, hence its French name, pissenlit. And then, yeah, there's a few other herbs in there. So goldenrod I use as a liver herb, actually. Sneezewort on the top right there, it looks a little bit like yarrow, actually, and it is actually related to it. And again, you can see how the flower is made up of these tiny little flowers. That's got kind of a diffusive taste, actually. You taste it, and I don't know if whenever you were a kid, when with the square kind of a battery, you'd lick them sometimes. Did you ever do that as a kid? It's got a very similar thing going on. It's like a kind of electric taste. And there is a Asteraceae from America which is known as electric daisy, and it has this amazing kind of stimulating thing. Very good for toothaches. Sneezewort, yeah. Yeah. You see it growing on the moors kind of in Devon quite a lot. I've seen it a lot around there. So that is the Canadian goldenrod, which you quite often see growing in the gardens, and it actually has escaped a lot. So you quite often on kind of railway banks it's there. And that is the native goldenrod as well. It does actually, it has a bit of that electric taste as well. Very good astringent for the lungs as well. Of course, a herb that we all know about is Echinacea. So that's an American herb, coneflower. Great one to have in the garden because it flowers for a long time. And then at the bottom right, we've got Eupatorium Cannabinoum, which is named after hemp actually because the leaves are vaguely like hemp. There are rumours of it being thought to be the English kind of an Echinacea, and I have read in folklore stuff about it being used for sepsis. Apparently a man in Cornwall in the 18th century saved himself from having to have his arm cut off. There are some quite nice herbs from the States which are related to it. So boneset is a really good herb for bone aching fever, but also it helps to set bones. And there's a lovely herb, gravel root or Joe Pyeweed, which is a very nice herb for the kidneys. Few more pictures here. So yarrow in the bottom left, and chicory in the top left, and mugwort, which is well known as the dream herb. Tansy in the top right, and that's ragwort at the arm at the lower right. So moving swiftly on, how long have we got? Is there a time? 5 minutes, right, okay. Okay, I'm going to run through the carrot family really quickly because it's quite important. So the carrot family, of course, it gives us carrots and parsnips and quite a lot of spices like fennel and dill. Medicines like angelica, wild celery, and then of course we got the poisons. So we got our hemlock, dropworts, fool's parsley, fool's watercress as well. All herbs you've got to be quite careful of, because if you pick them and think they're going to make a nice salad, it will be your last. But there are a few wild foods like cow parsley, chervil. Hogweed has got a bad name because people tend to mix it up with the giant hogweed, which if you touch it, it can cause a rash. But the normal hogweed can be eaten. I've never actually tried it myself. Yeah, so get a wildflower book for that one. Actually, the picture there is the giant hogweed. It is poisonous, but it is an amazing plant. It grows about 10 foot tall or more, and it's got these absolutely huge leaves. And here just a few examples. So angelica growing outside my shed in the top left. In the middle on the top, yeah, that I think was the hemlock leaves. God, I say I think. I mean, it's a bit hard to see. Once you know them, then you can see it, but it's quite hard in the picture. The main thing with the hemlock is at the bottom there's that purpley blotched stem, so that's the major sign. and Queen Anne's lace at the bottom left, so known as Queen Anne's lace because the red little flower in the middle is where she had her head chopped off and the rest of it is a ruff. So that's actually a wild carrot. Has been used for contraception, not always successfully. The Brassica family, really good for wild foods. It's a cruciferi because it has that cross-shaped flower. Generally made up with the sulfurous compounds, which is where you get the hot kind of mustardy taste. So the medicine action is circulatory stimulant, and it's also quite good for the gut as well. Nice wild foods there: sea cabbage, cress, and the garlic mustard. Scurvy grass is a nice one as well. It doesn't taste that great. At the bottom left, of course, is radish, which is nice to eat and nice as an external as well for kind of pain. So I'm going to quickly just run through a few other families. So the beet family, or the spinach family, fat hens is a common weed and you can eat that. It's fairly high in kind of oxalates, which can be quite harsh on the kidneys. But if you steam them well and don't eat them every day, it's fine. And then good King Henry, and of course the glasswort. So samphire is a well-known herb, and then carlaloo is a popular herb used for the leaves, and then the dock family. So the dock family is the home to buckwheat, and of course we're talking quite sour herbs. They're good to clear heat. They're astringent herbs, although they also work on the gut for constipation. So rhubarb root particularly is great for that. To the right there is actually Bistle, which is lovely as a wild food actually. And then in the middle there is redleg. And then sorrel is quite nice as a wild food. It's got a quite kind of nice kind of sour taste to it. And it's also used in the Hoxie formula for cancer with burdock, and a couple of other herbs I can't quite think at the moment. So yeah, a few other families to look out for, of course, is the legume family, the pea family. There are lots of pea family herbs growing around. Not actually, I mean, there are loads of medicines there, so there's licorice and things like that, but not an awful lot of things that you'll find growing wild. But if you look in the top right, that flower is the kind of classic pea family flower with the kind of keel in the middle and the wings. So then there's the comfrey and the borage family. So there is the borage star flower. Yeah, I perhaps haven't got much time to say anything. Then we've got the buttercup family, generally toxic, so you want to take care there. The bedstraw family is goosegrass. Have a nice effect on the blood actually. They're quite good for kind of lowering the viscosity of the blood. And the heath family is heather, bilberries, of course, blueberries, and yeah, I think that's probably it. I could kind of go on at length. And then, yeah, a few other things that you're going to see. So, of course, nettle is an amazing wild food, medicine, and yeah, I could do a whole talk perhaps on it. Wild garlic, perhaps we all know. Fumitory is a nice herb for the liver, and you see it around a lot. Primroses, you can use them for kind of sleep. Willow herbs used to be known as the gentleman's herb. It's a very good herb for prostate. St. John's wort, of course, a very good herb for kind of sad, so when you're being brought down in the winter, and it's also a very, very good herb for pain as well. And of course, chickweed is an amazing herb as a salad. It's meant to act on the thyroid as well, actually. And then elder and crampbark are in the same family. Crampbark's a lovely herb for tension and cramp, of course. And elder, of course, we use for our colds and flus and things like that. So I think that's
thank you so much.
kind of me, yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much.